Hello, Coach.
Yeah, this is, hey, Andrew, how are you doing?
Very well. I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me, Coach.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, obviously, Steve reached out to a couple of us to get an interview with Armando and you to do something on Armando, and I talked to him on Tuesday. So a couple of questions I have for you is the first thing, and he was really open about it. I asked him about if he remembered a time during his freshman year. If you remember, he had that injury, the ankle injury against Ohio State, and he struggled for about a month through Wofford and Gonzaga and some of those games. And in early January, he was talking with some of us after a game, and he told us that he had voices in his head. And what he was basically saying was that his confidence was really struggling, and he was trying to fight that, to try to work through it. And he eventually did. And I asked him, I said, what would Armando as a junior tell Armando as a freshman advice about that? Because I was kind of working on an angle about how he's matured. And he said he would tell him that don't get defeated by a bad game. Bad games happen. Don't let a bad game defeat you the next time you play, the next time you practice. And to me, it kind of spoke to the maturity that he has shown. I've asked you before about the maturity, but you were intimately around it. You were close to seeing the way he was 2 years ago as a freshman to where he is now, just as a guy, just as a person, and how that's helped him improve also as a basketball player. And he said that it's night and day. What is your view on that, seeing Armando at that point with the voices in his head to a guy now who generally fights through stuff like that?
Well, I did not know that he had voices in his head his freshman year. But, you know, for Armando, I have felt like that, you know, the season or the career that he's having is the natural progression of college basketball players, the way that it used to be. But I mean, Andrew, I was a different person between my freshman and sophomore, junior, senior year, and it was because of maturity. It was because of experience, off the court, in the classroom. I mean, it was just a number of things. I think we all learn and we all grow from our experiences, good and bad, that allow us to be the person that we are, the basketball player that we are. And so that's what Armando is doing. He's growing. He's growing as a basketball player. He's growing as a person. He's growing as a teammate. Just, it's a natural progression of going through a number of different experiences, good and bad, and working through those things.
In my career, I've done this for a long time, and that's one of my favorite things about doing this. It's why I kind of prefer college over pro, is to seeing that growth and maturity. And it's so obvious in Armando. And the thing that was also refreshing is I asked him, what more do you need to do? You've spoken very openly about his dreams and his aspirations of playing at the next level. And he said that he's got to be able to step away more. And he recognizes that there's a big part of his game that's still needed before he takes it to the next level. How do you see him work at that? How do you see him focus at getting better now for this team now and this team doing what it needs to do, but also how he's preparing himself for his personal future?
Well, I think, honestly, Andrew, I think one of the things that you have to do, I know everybody has dreams of going to the NBA. I really believe that, I'll answer it a couple ways. Number one, in order to get to the NBA, you have to do one thing like exceptionally well, like at the elite level. You just do. Whether you have like elite athleticism, elite size, elite shooting, elite defense, elite rebound, you have to do something at an elite level. To have longevity in the NBA, you have to be able to do at least one thing at an elite level consistently against elite players. Mm-hmm. It's just plain and simple, period, the end. And so, at the end of the day, in order to reach your dreams and goals, what can you do at an elite level that that'll get you there, and what can you do at an elite level in order to keep you there. Mm-hmm. And so the reason why I say that, Andrew, is at the end of the day is yes, specifically for Armando. And that's why we worked on threes and ball handling all summer, because he needs to have that skill. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, that's not going to be the determining factor that gets him in there and helps him stay there. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
It's not, and I think so many kids miss that mark. Like, one of the things that Armando does at an elite level is he rebounds.
Yeah.
That translates. And so, yes, his ability to be able to step away from the floor, that's going to be an added benefit. That'll be great for him in the league. But what he has to do what he does at an elite level is rebound the basketball.
Yeah.
So, and I think a lot of players take their eye on actually what's the most important thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I understand.
That's what has put him in position for his dreams to come true. Not because he can now shoot the ball from the outside. It's because he's rebounding at an elite level.
And he's doing that at elite level in college. Do you think that would translate to the next level as well?
I think defense and rebounding translate. I just do. I mean, it may not be statistically matched, from college to the NBA, but I think, an ability to rebound and, ability to defend, I think those things translate a lot more easier than shooting and scoring and different stuff like that. But I really do.
Sort of along those lines about the maturity and his general development, do you see him play through difficult stretches better now than maybe even in November? Is this something that he's accumulating and developing as the season's going on?
I think it's yes, and it's come in a different way. I think him handling, getting through good games and bad games has been terrific. But I think there's also been an adjustment. Also, after that Virginia game, he was. His numbers were ridiculously dominant.
Yeah.
And team shifted. And so now he's dealing with the shift of how teams are, not just he's number one on the scouting report, but doing everything that they can to make sure he's not successful out there on the floor. So I think there's more growth, there's more maturation in terms of growing out there on the floor, but I think he's done a really good job of it.
To your point, like last night, they were bodying him a lot. And it just looks like he's getting multiple bodies more and more than he was earlier in the year, and he has to learn to adjust to play through that.
Exactly. You're exactly right. You're exactly right.
Do you sometimes... I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Do you think part of the process is having... And I don't want to focus just on last night. That's a one-off in some respects. But do you think part of his process is this next level adjustment, is going back to being banged by a lot of guys, because they were putting bodies on him a lot, and it looked like it frustrated him at times, especially trying to get open. He wasn't open sometimes because he has to learn how to more consistently fight to get open in that situation. Is that this next part of his process?
It is 100%. 100%. Not now, as I said before, he's not number one on the scouting report. He is the scouting report.
Yeah.
And you have to find ways to take that to a different level. Okay, so they're going to try to do this against me. They're going to try to take this away from me. How can I still be successful with that? And so that's the next step for him.
And do you think he's at a point where it's just a matter of working through it and he'll get through it just fine, and maybe in 3 weeks from now, if you and I had this conversation, that wouldn't be as much an issue as it might be right now?
My hope is that he will he work through it? I believe he will. at where you can get better in terms of evaluating yourself on the film, your own scouting report, how teams historically have played, defensively, adjustments that you need to make. Like, there's next level preparation and process that needs to happen, and I believe Armando will do that. It is what is needed, and that's a compliment that now you're going to the next level, that teams are paying that much attention to you.
Yeah, I understand. My time's almost up. If I can just get one more question, this kind of speaks to what you talked about in your introductory press conference when you said you wanted guys that wanted to be there, that would appreciate being there. And the sense I've gotten from Armando this year, especially as he's been racking up some of these numbers, is when Steve starts telling us, "Hey, the last guy to do this was Jamison, or the last guy to do this was Hansbrough," it seems to me like he really is starting to appreciate and understand, playing for the front of the jersey, being lumped in at times with guys whose jerseys are hanging in the rafters, and that his perspective might be a lot different now than it was a couple years ago about who he is as a player, what he can achieve as a player, and the value in achieving a lot of those things at Carolina. Are you seeing the same thing?
My hope is not just in Armando, but in everybody. This team this year has had the opportunity to have over 25 former Lettermen speak to them. To have a number of former players come to the game. I mean, you've got Michael Jordan, you've got Vince Carter, you've got Danny Green. Got the 82 championship team coming. That is Andrew. That is my hope. It is that is my hope. It's not just Armando. Is that everybody? And one of the things that I've said is I would love to turn off the noise, but quiet down the noise of the phone, the family, and the friends, and fully invest yourself into this place. And, that is what is required here.
That's hard to do, though. That's hard to do these days because everything's at their fingertips.
It's very hard to do these days, but it's not impossible. And it can be done. I really believe it.
Yeah, if you don't mind, one more quick thing. I'll follow up on that. Is that your biggest challenge right now? Especially after something like last night, is that your biggest challenge? And not just, and Armando would be the lead guy on this because he's the most accomplished one, and he's the one that is more the target of opposing teams. So do you have to kind of get through to him to get through the other guys? And is he capable of being that guy?
No. I don't have to get through to him to get through to other guys. I've got great relationships, and my communication with the team is clear, definitive, and it's not vague in my interpretation at all. They understand where I'm coming from and what is expected and what is required of them on the court, in the classroom, in the community. No, I don't.
I didn't mean to say that you weren't with the other guy. I'm just speaking more of the importance of Armando being that guy. That's all.
I think it needs to be. Do you think are you asking? Do you think he's that guy?
Well, just more so if Armando gets it, that maybe other guys, some of the younger guys, they kind of look to him and maybe follow his lead a little bit. If he gets it and he echoes some of the things you're saying, then maybe they get it a little bit quicker too.
Yeah, I think it has to be. I'd like it from the entire team.
Yeah, totally understood. Mac Brown has said a lot that player-led teams are the most successful teams. So that's kind of what I'm getting at about, because we've asked you about leadership a few times this year, and a few weeks ago you said you're still looking for it. So, and if your most accomplished player on the court can be that guy, that's even better because he's got all that clout. So that's kind of where I'm going with that.
I agree with you. I do think the best teams are not just player-led, but have to have player leadership. I just do. It's just all the teams that I've been a part of as a player and as an assistant coach, that's one thing that's always been consistent with really good teams is having great leadership in the locker room.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I've taken more than the 10 minutes I was allowed, so I really appreciate it very much. I really appreciate you talking to me. I've enjoyed it, and hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Okay, that sounds great. Thanks a lot, Andrew.
Take care. Bye-bye.